I drifted between life and death for 3 days after a hard, brutal labor. When I woke, the scent of blood still clung to the sheets, and the world outside was too silent for a newborn to exist in it. My maid knelt beside me, eyes swollen from crying. "Your Majesty," she whispered, "the Emperor took the baby to the Palace of Serenity. The Empress will raise him as her own." I stared at the gold-embroidered canopy above me, then turned to the wall. "Let him do as he wishes." Later, Alexander Meng returned, the child cradled in his arms. "This is our son," he said softly. "Look at him, just once." I felt nothing. His voice broke. "You don't want him anymore?" "No, not the Emperor. Not the child he'd stolen from me." Chapter 1. The moment I opened my eyes, pain came rushing back. Dense, searing pain that revived every memory of the delivery. It had been 20 long hours of torment. I vaguely remembered the cry of a newborn breaking through the air as my eyelids grew unbearably heavy. Now awake again, I felt at once that the Palace of Grace was too quiet. No crying infant. No wet nurse humming a lullaby. The first sound I heard was the broken sob of my maid Luna. When she saw my eyes open, she burst into tears, her voice shaking. "Your Grace, the baby is gone. His Majesty said you were too weak, so he's given the child to Lady Sylvia to raise." I begged him to tell us when the baby would be returned, but he said the noble consort will treat the boy as her own, and that you must not worry. "What should we do, Your Grace? How can we get him back?" I listened blankly, staring up at the golden canopy above me until dizziness blurred my vision. Then I turned away and said quietly, "The Emperor's will cannot be defied." Luna wiped her tears. "But it's your son. The Emperor decides whose son he is." A single hot tear slid from the corner of my eye. Alexander Meng must be very pleased with how things turned out. He once said it himself, "Whoever bears the first prince shall become the Empress." From that day on, every woman in the palace knew there was no longer any suspense about who would hold the throne beside him. Since his coronation, countless beauties had been sent into the palace, yet only Lady Sylvia Sue held his favor. The night I conceived was the one night he was drunk and mistook me for her. To think we'd been married for years and still grown so distant, it would almost be funny if it weren't so bitter. Alexander Meng was 19 when I married him, but I had already been at his side for 5 years. Since he was 14, we had been inseparable. That was the lowest, darkest time of his life. He once had a mother, Empress Dowager Celeste, but her entire family was executed after her kin rebelled. The Empress herself was forced to drink poison. While Alexander was still mourning her, one of his brothers slipped a subversive poem into his study. He was accused of treason, beaten nearly to death, stripped of his title, and thrown into the cold palace. He lay there dying, with no one willing to treat him. I went to beg the chief eunuch for help. He studied me, smiled thinly, and said, "If you want to save him, you can, tomorrow. But tonight, you're not leaving." By dawn, when I finally staggered out of the eunuch's quarters, my body was bruised and broken. I had learned just how many ways there were to humiliate a person. Still, I brought the imperial physician into the cold palace. After treating Alexander, the physician hesitated. "I'll prescribe a few medicines for you as well," he murmured. That was when Alexander realized that the scent of blood in the room wasn't only his own. When we were alone, he quietly pulled down my sleeve, saw the wounds across my body, and whispered, "Why would you endure this?" Why indeed? It had all begun for the Empress. I had served Empress Celeste as her lady-in-waiting. Before her death, she left me a blood-written letter, begging me to protect her son. A promise made to the dying cannot be broken. After saving his life, I stayed in the cold palace with him, 5 long years sharing his hunger and his silence. At last, the false poem case was overturned. He was released, and the Emperor decreed that Alexander should marry me. When the imperial edict arrived, I saw disappointment in his eyes. Even as husband and wife, he never touched me. I knew he resented the price I had paid to save him, so I never sought his favor. Later, when he ascended the throne, he made me a consort, Lady Serena, titled Consort of Obedience. And the woman who had slipped him food through the cracks of the cold palace wall, Lady Sylvia Sue, was named the noble consort. While the former emperor still lived, Lady Sylvia, the dowager's niece, had been Alexander's childhood companion. Even during his years of exile, she sent him warm food through a hole in the wall, and on festival nights they exchanged riddles by candlelight. In that damp, shadowed place, the only time he smiled was when he received something from her. During my confinement after childbirth, the Palace of Grace remained silent and cold. Only concubine Vera came to visit. She sneered, "I thought you'd finally earn power through your child. Turns out the glory belongs to Lady Sylvia instead. Her palace is drowning in gifts." I stayed silent. Vera grew impatient. "I've never seen anyone as spineless as you. Don't you know she's about to become the Empress?" She wanted me to fight back, to cause chaos, to ruin the coronation. But I had no strength left. I couldn't even get out of bed. The next day, an imperial decree was announced. Lady Sylvia Sue, for giving birth to the first prince, was to be crowned Empress. The ceremony was held on the eve of the prince's full-month celebration. Music and laughter filled the night, echoing through every wall of the palace, drowning out the soft sobs within mine. It was Luna. She had secretly smuggled the baby out and brought him to me, trembling as she spoke. "Your Grace, the wet nurse is from my hometown. She took pity on us. Everyone's busy at the ceremony. Please just look at your son. Look at him once more." I gazed at the child's tiny face. He was already a month old. This was the first time I'd seen him since giving birth. I had imagined that seeing my own child would bring a surge of emotion. Instead, I felt nothing. The infant, sensing the unfamiliar surroundings, began to wail uncontrollably. "Take him back," I said softly. "If we're discovered, the nurse will be punished." Luna hesitated. "Your Grace, aren't you going to hold him? You labored for an entire day and night to bring him into this world. Will you really hand him back so easily to Lady Sylvia?" "What does it matter, willing or not?" Alexander had already made up his mind. This child was meant to secure Sylvia's throne. No matter who bore him, she would be his mother in name. It was never my choice, just as it hadn't been that night when I paid the price to save Alexander's life. "Take him back," I told Luna. "He's crying. Let the nurse feed him." Not long after, the nurse reported us to Lady Sylvia. Sylvia accused Luna of attempting to harm the prince and ordered her punished. When I heard the news, I fell from my bed. Crawling across the cold floor, I saw a pair of black and gold boots stop before me. Alexander's voice was sharp. "I told you Lady Sylvia would treat the prince as her own. Why did you send your maid to steal him away?" I clutched at his robe, crying, "Please, spare Luna. She only acted without thinking. She meant no harm." He pulled his robe free, frowning. "The child is frail. After what your maid did, how can she be blameless?" I forced myself upright, lifting my face to plead. "Punish me instead. Please, punish me, not her." At last, a flicker of something, pity maybe, touched his cold eyes. "I've spoken to you about our son for so long," he said hoarsely, "yet all you think about is that maid. Do you not even care how the prince fares?" "The prince has your Majesty and the Empress to care for him," I whispered. "He needs nothing from me. I beg only that you spare Luna." Alexander turned away, his voice cutting. "Then speak to the Empress. It's no longer my concern." I dragged my weak body to the Palace of Tranquility, the Empress's new residence, conveniently close to the Emperor's hall. "Lady Serena, you cannot enter without notice." The eunuchs tried to stop me, but when they saw my bloodshot eyes, they froze. In the courtyard I saw her, Lady Sylvia Sue, standing beneath a blooming pear tree, holding the prince and smiling down at him as petals fell around them. I fell to my knees. "Your Majesty, I beg you, spare Luna, she'll never disobey again." Sylvia laughed softly. Her chief maid said, "Lady Serena, please return, Her Majesty is occupied." Then, in a harsher tone, "Why are you still standing there? Escort Lady Serena back to rest." They carried me away. Outside the palace, the attendants took pity and let me go. I stumbled, step by step, all the way to the Department of Punishment. There, I found Luna tied to the rack. Her thin body was bound in thick ropes soaked with blood. She was already dead. My knees gave out. Darkness swallowed me. When I awoke, the imperial physician looked at me with deep sorrow. "Your Grace, your body was weakened by the difficult birth, and now your life force is nearly spent. I fear you may never bear another child." I should have felt despair, but inside, there was only emptiness. The physician bowed toward Alexander, who stood silent beside the bed. His face was grave. He finally spoke. "It's only a maid. I'll find you another, cleverer one." I stared blankly for a long time, then murmured, "I only want Luna." "Serena," he said at last, as if granting mercy. Be obedient, and I'll have the prince returned to you. Something in me snapped. I sat up, shouting hoarsely, "No, don't bring him to me, I don't want him." Alexander's eyes widened in shock. Perhaps he wondered what kind of mother could be so heartless. But wasn't my child taken from me the moment he was born? He had come to me in rare goodwill, but I'd humiliated him instead. His expression darkened. He waved for the attendants to bring the prince. Taking the baby himself, he leaned forward and set the small bundle by my pillow. "Serena, look, your son." The faint scent of milk drifted toward me. I turned my head slightly. A soft, warm creature, well-fed and healthy. He was fine. There was nothing left for me to worry about. Alexander's gaze grew heavy when I made no move to touch the child. He seemed to realize something. But before he could speak, the maid who had brought the prince whispered nervously, "Your Majesty, the time for the young prince's full-month banquet is near. I must take him back before the Empress becomes anxious." "Take him," Alexander said after a pause. Then, lower, "and tell no one what happened here. Not a word to the Empress." Hearing that, I almost laughed, perhaps at him, perhaps at myself. Chapter 2. They helped me to the prince's full-month banquet. During the feast, Alexander Meng announced the name. "After days of consideration with the Empress, we have chosen Adrian for the first prince." Amid the congratulations, concubine Vera leaned in with feigned innocence. "Lady Serena, I recall you had a different name in mind during your pregnancy, didn't you?" I said nothing. She continued, airy and bright. "Well, as long as you also like Adrian, it's no matter." Like or dislike, what did it matter? Like everyone else present, I was hearing my son's name for the first time. None of it mattered now. My body was still weak. A short while sitting left me drained. Because I hadn't touched the sweets at my place, little Princess Emma slipped from Prince Leon's arms, ran over, and asked, "Lady Serena, why aren't you eating?" "I'm not hungry," I said softly. "But your face is pale," she insisted. "You must be hungry." I smiled, picked up a small cake, broke it in half, and fed her a piece. The movement on our side must have drawn attention. When I turned, I found Alexander's gaze fixed on us. He suddenly called the little princess over. She scampered back to him, bold, 5 or 6 years old and afraid of no one, then wandered to Lady Sylvia Sue and poked baby Adrian's cheek. She giggled. "What a coincidence, the baby has a dimple. Lady Serena has one too." One sentence, silence fell over the hall. People glanced at one another. Most of the nobles present knew very well where this child had come from. Prince Leon quickly called his daughter back. "You're getting quite unruly. How dare you trouble Her Majesty and the young prince? Come here at once, or I'll have to punish you." Alexander lowered his eyes and said coolly, "She's just a child, no need to be harsh." But Lady Sylvia's face had gone cold. She was displeased. I knew I was no longer welcome. I murmured a brief farewell and returned to the Palace of Grace. As soon as I arrived, fatigue washed over me, and I sank onto the couch, limp and hollow. I lay there, hating this fragile body. Not long after, an attendant announced that Alexander had come and was waiting outside. I closed my eyes and pretended to be asleep. Even when I felt someone sit by the bed, I didn't open them. Half dreaming, I sensed a gentle pressure at my cheek, right where the dimple was. In the cold palace, Alexander used to touch me like that. Now, the touch sent a chill through me. Alexander assigned me a new maid named Nora. She looked so much like Luna. He must have thought it was kindness. He didn't know that every time I looked at Nora, I saw Luna's bleeding body tied to the rack. I couldn't sleep at night. They kept changing the bedding under me. Each mattress they took away was stained with blood. My postpartum illness worsened. Sometimes the pain drove me out of my senses. Only then, only when consciousness slipped, did I feel the slightest relief. Was I going to die soon? Even the strength to fear death left me. I drifted in and out of black sleep. When I was awake, I told Nora to make sure the imperial physician did not report my condition to the man in the Hall of Harmony. I didn't want to see Alexander again. He likely didn't want to see me either. Only feared being called heartless if he stayed away. Sick as I was, time blurred. I heard words pass my door. 100-day banquet? Half-year mark. So he was growing. When the weather turned hot, Nora helped me to a pavilion in the Palace of Grace to feel a little breeze. Alexander came, and he brought Adrian. The boy had indeed grown, 7 or 8 months old now. Alexander placed Adrian in my arms, eager, almost tender. Serena, hold him, he's taller and heavier. He was heavy. My arms dipped with the sudden weight. I looked at him and said, Her Majesty has raised him well. It was true, but the words from my mouth made Alexander's face go stiff. I glanced at the maid beside him, motioning for her to take the boy back. I have little strength. I might drop him. Alexander didn't hand Adrian to the maid, he took the child himself. Then, pointing to me, he told the babbling boy, Adrian, this is your mother. There, Adrian echoed, parrot-like, but his eyes slid past me, searching, circling, looking for Lady Sylvia. Alexander watched my face carefully. There was nothing left in me to be wounded. Serena, he said gently, if I return Adrian to you, would you? I cut him off with a faint smile. Babies cling to what they know. Change his home so suddenly and he'll cry himself sick. That would be foolish. Shock tightened his expression. He looked at me as if he couldn't believe a mother would push away her own child, but I had long since lost the strength to raise a prince. Disappointment and confusion bled together in his eyes until the whites flushed red. Hoarsely he asked, Serena, do you not want your son? Your Majesty, is it truly that I do not want him? Or is it that from beginning to end I never had a choice? If I agreed to take him today, Lady Sylvia would tear the Palace of Grace apart. I was right. While Alexander still waited for my answer, Sylvia burst in, eyes blazing, heading straight for Adrian. Clutching the boy tight, she glared at me. Lady Serena, what are you trying to do? I shook my head. Your Majesty, good that you're here. The young prince was just looking for you. My voice was calm, as if Adrian were simply someone else's child. Sylvia faltered, surprised that I didn't fight her. Even so, her hostility didn't fade. Be careful, Lady Serena. Don't pass your illness to the child. I held her gaze and said, each word deliberate, if illness could be passed, it would have passed the day I bore him. Silence, Sylvia snapped. Adrian has been recorded as the legitimate heir. Do not dare speak nonsense about his birth. Your Majesty, Alexander said in a low voice, only a gentle reminder to the Empress. With Sylvia, he was always tender. Even when she pressed too hard, he merely asked her to stop. The Emperor is right. As Empress, I shouldn't bicker with Lady Serena, Sylvia said, holding Adrian as she brushed past me. Then she added, soft but sharp. After all, Lady Serena suffered before marriage, enough to humiliate even a eunuch. My body went rigid. That memory had lain buried for years. I thought I could ignore it, but dragged into the open, it thrashed inside me like a trapped animal. I smiled at Sylvia. You think I'm filthy? Then remember, the boy in your arms carries my blood. Serena, enough, Alexander barked, harsher than ever before. When I looked at him, his eyes were ice. He was furious at my loose tongue, at the stain such words cast on his dignity. So I had guessed right. He had never let go of that old shame. Your Majesty, no, Alexander. What else could I have bartered for your life back then in the cold palace except myself? I didn't ask. No answer he could give would matter now. While I stood motionless, Alexander led Sylvia and the boy away. The Palace of Grace fell silent again, so silent that even the physician stopped coming. Without medicine, the pain kept me awake through the night. Nora grew frantic, trying to find a physician who would help. I stopped her. Don't throw yourself away for me. Luna had. And before her, so had I. I wouldn't let Nora follow us into ruin, but Nora still brought medicine. When I saw the packets, my breath seized and I tore at her clothes in panic, only to find her skin unmarked. She dressed quickly, baffled. Your Grace, what are you doing? I shook my head, all at once weak with relief. Nora said, no one beat me. These medicines aren't from the palace. They came from outside. No one here will know. Outside? I stared at the medicine. A spark returned to my eyes. The night before Adrian's first birthday banquet was Luna's death day. Wind and rain battered the windows until they thudded like drums. When Nora came to check the latches, she found me sitting on the bed, staring at a slice of rain-washed darkness on the pane. Your Grace, what is it? She asked. I clutched my chest and pointed outward, terrified. Luna. Luna has come back. I saw her. Nora hurried to soothe me. No, Your Grace, you're imagining it. She's at peace. But I flung aside the quilt and ran into the storm. Cold wind and rain slapped my skin like knives. My bare feet hit sharp stones. The cuts burned and split. Still I didn't stop. Don't stop. That same stormy night, chilled by the damp air, Alexander summoned the imperial physician for his headache. Casually, he asked, "No one has reported on Lady Serena's health in some time. How is she?" The physician hesitated. "Months ago we received orders to stop attending the Palace of Grace." Alexander swept the medicine bowl from the table. It shattered across the floor. "Why withdraw them? Hasn't she always been unwell?" Trembling, the physician bowed to the ground. "Yes, Your Majesty. Her postpartum illness was never resolved. It has become grave. I fear it may be beyond remedy." "Then why?" Alexander thundered. "Was I not told?" "It was Lady Serena," the physician said. "She ordered that nothing be reported to Your Majesty." Alexander rose at once, striding over the shards. He was going to the Palace of Grace. Attendants tried to stop him. "Your Majesty, wait for morning. The rain is—" A desperate voice broke through the heavy doors. "Your Majesty, there's trouble at the Palace of Grace." They opened the doors to Nora, drenched to the skin. Weeping, she said, "Her Grace panicked and ran into the storm. I can't find her." She added through sobs, "She is frail. We couldn't get a physician before. Her illness has turned deadly. In this rain, I fear she may not survive. Please, send people to search. No physician. Grave illness." Each word pierced Alexander's chest like a spike. No physician, again, just like before. The days he despised to remember, the cold palace, the helplessness, rushed back at him. Back then, no doctor would take his case either. It was his mother's maid, the woman now called Lady Serena, who begged for help and saved his life. Staring into the rain, his iron gaze went unfocused, hollow. He broke free of the attendants and plunged into the storm. No one knew how long he searched. At last he found me on a high platform, clothes soaked, rain and blood mingling on my skin. Beyond the ledge the river roared. He caught his breath and moved closer, then froze as I swayed nearer the edge. "Serena, what are you doing?" I shivered. "Luna," I whispered. "I saw Luna. She came for me. She blames me." "That maid's death was not your doing," he almost screamed. "It was Sylvia who gave the order." "Lady, Sylvia, I murmured, lost. Suddenly Alexander's voice softened, trembling. "I'll make you Empress. I'll bring Adrian back. The throne, the child, everything will be yours. Just step down from there." I smiled. "I don't want them." A pause. "You, the child, the throne. I don't want to be trapped by any of you anymore." "I'm not trapping you," he said. I looked straight through him as if seeing someone else. "Empress Dowager Celeste," I said, the name of his mother. "I thought her last letter only chained me to the cold palace for 5 years. It chained me for a lifetime." And then, in the pounding rain, I leaned back and let go. His cry tore itself against the stone walls. When sense returned to him, it was already too late. Blood rose to my lips and was swallowed by the rain, leaving nothing behind. Epilogue worse. Nora, after Lady Serena died, I was transferred to the Hall of Harmony to attend His Majesty Alexander Meng. It was as if keeping me close allowed him to keep some trace of Lady Serena alive. His Majesty discovered that it was Lady Sylvia Sue who had ordered the imperial physicians withdrawn from the Palace of Grace. Not only that, I quietly told him how, on Luna's death day, Lady Serena had been terrified by a staged ghost, driven into confusion and despair. That thread led straight to Lady Sylvia's agents, who had been sent ahead to play at spirits in the Palace of Grace. When this came to light, Sylvia shed her finery, put on plain clothes, and knelt outside the Hall of Harmony for 2 days and nights, without food or water. At last she fainted onto the cold floor. His Majesty emerged, lifted her in his arms, and carried her back. I thought then, he will not punish her too harshly. But I could not read his heart. They say he indulges her without limit, yet I saw him grip Sylvia's chin and say, "Adrian will one day inherit the throne. He cannot have a mother who has been deposed." Sylvia nodded hard, clutching his sleeve, sobbing a vow that she would never again give in to jealousy. And then, when she fainted, she was also diagnosed as with child. At last, Sylvia would bear a child of her own. The central palace was soon trampled by well-wishers. Just as her place seemed unshakable, her pregnancy slipped away in a sudden wash of blood. Sylvia was inconsolable. In the Hall of Harmony, the response was cool, almost indifferent, because it had been His Majesty's will that the child be lost. I delivered the medicine. Afterwards, Sylvia suspected every consort who had come near her, everyone except the one who had brought the medicine, me. Later, His Majesty soothed her gently. "Your Majesty the Empress, Adrian is your one remaining hope. Treat him well, as you always have." Sadly, Sylvia did not hear the meaning underneath. She heard only one remaining hope. As before, she clung to the first prince and raised him with meticulous care. On his 10th birthday, Prince Adrian was formally declared crown prince. When the imperial seal was placed in his hands, His Majesty looked at him and said, "I wonder whether your mother would be pleased to see you made crown prince." Adrian smiled. "If I can share father's burdens, Her Majesty the Empress will surely be glad." His Majesty shook his head. "I do not mean the Empress, I mean your birth mother." Adrian froze. He had heard rumors that the late Lady Serena was his real mother, but he had never expected to hear it from the Emperor's own lips. Bewilderment crossed his face. "It is only conversation," His Majesty said quietly. "There is no need to be anxious." Then he signaled to me. "Nora, take the crown prince to the ancestral hall, I will follow." On the way, Adrian could not help asking, "Auntie, was father speaking the truth?" I smiled a little. "More than you know. Someday I will tell you stories, about the withdrawn physicians and about ghosts." It does not matter if Adrian repeats my words to His Majesty. The Emperor has kept me in the Hall of Harmony for years. He must have foreseen this day. "Your Highness Adrian, we will take our time." After the Crown Prince's birthday comes Lady Serena's death day. And when I think of it, something I have hidden nearly 10 years rises up. The first year after Lady Serena fell into the river and died, I encountered Prince Leon bringing little Princess Emma into the palace. "Father," the child asked, "isn't Adrian's birthday feast not yet here?" "Why are we going into the palace now?" Prince Leon said. "Today is Lady Serena's death day. His Majesty has cancelled court. I'm going in to see why." "Lady Serena?" the child asked. "The same one you told me to cheer up at Adrian's full-month banquet?" Prince Leon was silent for a moment, then nodded. The little princess laughed. "Not only that, you taught me to go before the Empress and mention the dimple." Prince Leon raised a finger at once for silence. "Do not speak nonsense." I had not known this. I did know that when Sylvia withdrew the physicians and Lady Serena writhed day and night in pain, the medicines I brought to the Palace of Grace also came from Prince Leon. That is why I told Lady Serena they were from outside the palace. She did not ask who sent them. I think she knew. How could she not? Prince Leon was the bridegroom Empress Dowager Celeste had chosen for her with painstaking care. Back when Lady Serena was still a court lady, she entered the cold palace at the late Empress's blood-lettered plea. People called her a fool. But it is said that before the Dowager fell, she loved Lady Serena truly, granting her rank as a lady-in-waiting early, and when Serena came of age, asking the former emperor to grant her the honor of a prince's bride. Among the princes of suitable age, the Dowager favored Prince Leon. The former emperor objected. He disdained Serena's birth and had already chosen the prime minister's daughter to be Leon's princess. Yet at the Dowager's entreaty, he relented. And just as the marriage edict was to be issued, disaster struck the Dowager's family. Her end was ruin. The betrothal was never sealed. So after Serena entered the cold palace to remain with the deposed prince, the former emperor immediately ordered Leon to marry the prime minister's daughter. 5 years into that marriage, the princess finally bore a daughter. By then, His Majesty had only just been released from the cold palace. So by the time the little princess could run and laugh, Adrian was born. Because Adrian's birthday lies so near Lady Serena's death day, his birthday was never again celebrated as grandly as his first-month feast. As for Lady Serena's death day, I kept it only that first year. When I set river lanterns afloat for her, I saw Prince Leon by the bank. He told me a story. On that river through the palace grounds, boats are usually tied along the shore. One stormy night, whether the rain was too fierce or for some other reason, those boats all tore loose, drifting across the water. So when someone fell in, there was no way to save them at once. They could only wait for new boats to be brought in. By the time they arrived, it was too late. I asked Prince Leon if the one who fell in must have met a desolate end. He said only this: "Someone can hide in an old boat for a rainy night. When morning comes, the boat and what's in it drifts away." I woke as if from a dream. But if Lady Serena had already made her choice, why did she act as if she were frightened by a ghost and flee? Suddenly, I thought of the phrase, "go with the current." Sylvia arranged a masquerade of souls returned. Lady Serena did not waste the scene. She took madness for her cue and chose death. From that moment, His Majesty truly believed she had been forced to a dead end. Lady Serena never told me any of this. All I saw was a woman haunted by ghosts, then plunging into the river to atone. And I, in turn, recounted the ghost play to His Majesty, driving him to uncover Sylvia. The thought makes me shiver. Your Grace, had you counted this step as well? Why else wait until I came to close the windows before your hysteria began? Besides, I remember fastening every latch before nightfall. After a while, I laughed softly. We worked together, not badly at all. In truth, I had served Her Grace only a few months, not enough time to build real wordless understanding. Because it was brief, I did not witness all the neglect she endured, nor can I imagine the pain of losing her child. I gave her all I had because of Luna. They say I resembled her. Few knew we were sisters by blood. Luna had served Lady Serena for years. On the day Sylvia sent Luna to the Department of Punishment, Lady Serena, still not recovered from childbirth, dragged her weak body through the palace to beg for her life. When the frail consort was thrown out of the Empress's palace, I thought she would die that very day. To offend the central palace is a death road. I did not expect Lady Serena to leave, to abandon husband and child and run. Run then. Run faster. Do not stop. Epilogue 2. Adrian Thirst was 15 that year when the court was upended. The Sioux clan had committed a grave crime. They now faced exile of the entire family. As father signed the edict, I stood beside him. He told me he would not depose Empress Sylvia Sioux. At that very moment, the Empress knelt outside the hall, knocking her head against the steps, begging my father, and begging me to intercede for her. Her cries were raw, but I said nothing. At last I lowered my eyes, struggling to hide the pain in front of my father. After a time, the sobbing ceased. Only then did I speak. Father, I asked, if you could live it again, would you still have given me to Lady Sioux to raise? His brush halted hard. He lifted his head, face shadowed. I chose for you a mother of exalted rank, he said. Until today, the Sioux family has been illustrious for many years. Did you not approve? He paused. Adrian, you were born to carry great hopes. I am usually obedient. Perhaps the moment unstrung me. I gave a bitter smile. Father, your great hopes have made me wretched. Smiling, I found myself in tears. For years, Aunt Nora had told me everything that happened. The woman who raised me was also the source of my hatred. I hated Lady Sioux, yet beyond hate, I felt a desolate pity. When I came back to myself, my father was still studying me, but the sharpness in his eyes had turned distant and cold. As I left the Hall of Harmony, I heard a stifled sob behind me. Later, Aunt Nora took me outside the palace to clear my thoughts. I asked her about my birth mother. After I was born, I said, did she hold me only once? Aunt Nora's voice was gentle. It was not her heart that kept her distant, but her failing health. Do not blame her. I was startled. Where did you hear blame in my words? Aunt Nora did not answer. She had stopped, staring at a woman who had just passed us by. What is it, Aunt? I asked. That lady's back, she whispered, is so very like Her Grace's. I have never seen her, I said. I would not know. Aunt Nora breathed a name, very softly, Your Grace. But the figure did not pause, did not even falter, and went on further and further away. Aunt Nora had misspoken, calling a living woman by the name of one long dead. I scolded her lightly. If she didn't stop, then she surely wasn't the one. And besides, how could she have stopped? Aunt Nora smiled a little. Yes, she said. She didn't stop. That's very good.